Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, a very special Star Wars Stuff podcast with some special guests. My name is David.
My name is
Retro Ray.
Zach. Oh, sorry, Ray.
Oh,
Cutting you off
sorry.
already.
Retro Ray.
And I'm Zach.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Joe Caroni.
And wow, what a day! Huge news about our favorite galaxy far, far away. It was kind of unsuspected. I didn't think we were going to get any big announcements, and I have a theory on that I think we'll touch on later. But the big news is, of course, we're going to get a Mandalorian and Grogu movie titled Mandalorian and Grogu, I believe. And AHSOKA Season 2 is in development, so there's a confirmation there that I know that on the last podcast we did, we were wondering about the status of that. I know Rosario Dawson said she was going to meet with Lucasfilm and some of the cast. So apparently that's all happening. I'm hyped up. Like Zach has been saying since he's joined the podcast, a Mandalorian Grogu movie is such a slam dunk, I think, for Star Wars. I mean, that's
Big slam dunk.
I think we've been saying it since 2019 that Mandalorian and especially Grogu, Baby Yoda. I mean, that's really the moneymaker. And it seems absurd that we haven't had a Grogu film, a Baby Yoda film in theaters. It debuted in 2019. It was a smash hit. And of course, it's 2024 now. And now we got the confirmation of the news that we're going to get this film. But first, before we kick it all off here, I want to thank our top tier patrons, starting with Hayden Hauser, Darth Ace 1, Liam McCallion, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel, Fenrir 526, Maya Morris, and Makatao Tala. Thank you to everyone here for all your awesome support. And yeah, guys, Ray, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think about this news that we're finally going to get a Mandalorian and Grogu film?
Dude, we've been talking about this since the beginning. We got it back, for streaming. We said that we needed this to be shown on the big screen so fans can go out and watch it, like they did with the Ahsoka series, that certain people got to go see it on the big screen. I'm excited. I can't wait, especially with Dave Filoni behind everything. I'm happy. I can't wait.
Zach?
Man, I guess I think about cool moments that have happened in the Disney Plus shows in the past couple of years. I would have been so much cooler with a crowd of people in a theater. Like when Luke Skywalker comes in at the end of Mandalorian Season 2. Imagine if that was in a theater. Like, we have potential to see something of that scale in this movie that is upcoming. And I'm just geeked. I can believe that it's happening because it's kind of a no-brainer for them to do something like this. But it definitely brings Star Wars back to the theater where it belongs to some extent. And I can't wait to see what they cook up, and I can't wait to react to it with other fans that care about it.
That's awesome. So, Connor, we spoke before the podcast, and you just learned the news right now. So, what are your initial thoughts about this news?
It'll be interesting to see kind of where this kind of goes. I wonder how it might kind of culminate with all the other like Star Wars shows to come and all that. You had Ahsoka going on, and where Mando Season 3 kind of ended. It'll be interesting to see like what might come together with what. Well, I don't know what spoilers we may go over, but like at the end of Ahsoka, who kind of shows up, will they maybe kind of work together in some kind of aspect,
Yeah, we can talk about full spoilers for all the TV shows that we know up to this point.
Any kind of Rebels characters now meeting Mando in live action could be very interesting. That kind of chemistry with the unknown characters. So yeah, it could be very interesting. I look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Joe, when did you find out about this news?
Oh, same as everyone today, this afternoon. I think as soon as it popped up within that first hour, it was all over my social media, all over my feed. So yeah, I heard about it when it was officially announced.
So what are you excited for? Because you're like us. You love Star Wars to the bone. Of course, the shirt you're rocking is beautiful.
Thanks.
What do you want to see?
Phoenix Squadron represent.
Yeah. So what do you want to see that we haven't seen in live action in this movie that you hope to see?
with the Mandalorian movie, I mean, oh man, what am I hoping to see? You know, from I'd say from like a technical standpoint, I want to see, um, I want to see, like, as much as I love what they do with the volume, I want to see, an even bigger scope for the movie. Like bigger sets, more like, bigger scope for the story. Not that the Mandalorian doesn't have that already, but I think they're kind of limited by what they do with the volume. And I'm sure they're definitely going to use the volume for the movie. I mean, it just makes sense. But let's see some more on location stuff. Let's see some more practical sets. Let's see some more practical, ships and bigger action. The stuff that makes Star Wars feel epic. And I think the Mandalorian show, there is an intimacy to it. And when it goes big, it still feels pretty big, but I think it feels different on the big screen, and I think you have to go bigger for the big screen.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, they've done some events, some red carpet events, and they've shown the Mandalorian on the big screen. Not until they decided to release it on physical media. I got it right here, actually. And I haven't even opened it yet, but yeah, it's in 4K, and I still want to check it out in 4K. And you do hear a lot of people talk about how they see the seams of the soundstage of the what was the term? Yeah, the stagecraft, the volume. People complain about that. That really doesn't jump out to me that much, but I agree with you, Joe. I think they're gonna have to go bigger and louder and more expansive. Andor was praised for the use of its practical sets and going to different locations to shoot. But one thing that they didn't talk about in the article was exactly when we're going to get the film for The Mandalorian and Grogu. They alluded to it being the first film. And I believe beforehand the Rey film was going to be the first film. So if they're gonna rush out the Mandalorian and Grogu, I would expect to have heavy volume use, which is I don't know if it's a good or bad sign. Maybe the technology has gotten better, but I mean, you bring back the same crew, it's going to be old hat to them, and I do want to see something bigger. But from everything that I've heard from people that say they've been to these premieres for The Mandalorian, they've said that The Mandalorian works on the big screen. So depending on if Lucasfilm takes that information to heart and if they just kind of run with the volume and decide not to go outside of shooting outside of America, it's going to be interesting to see. Ray, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. I mean, for guys, you don't know who Joe is. Joe works for Lucasfilms. He does a lot of original art for them. Just, for guys who are watching some live stream, this is one of his pieces that he's done. One of the hundreds of pieces he's done that you can get on his site. But one of the things that I like about Joe's art is you can see what he puts into it. So when we're going to get this, of course. I look forward to see what he's going to create and what, I know the processes that he has to go through before he actually it gets approved. He has to submit it, and then they got to approve it. But if you don't know who he is, go to his website, check out all the stuff that he has. You can buy it online. If not, you can check which convention he's going to be at. But I want to see what they're going to come up with. What I would like to see. I love Bad Batch, and I love those characters. I hope they survive up to this point, because if we, of course, Star Wars Rebels, we saw a couple of the old clone troopers and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see what we're gonna get in the movie. I want to see some more of those animation characters come into the big screen.
So just checking, you guys can still be good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
So Zach, did you have any thoughts on like shooting use of the volume? That's
I guess for myself personally, I think of it as another thing that Lucasfilm has created for the film industry, and I'm kind of curious to see if they create some other sort of, I guess, technology that becomes more modernized with filmmaking, with kind of how The Mandalorian created the volume. I believe The Mandalorian was the first show that the volume was used on. I wonder if there's something new that could be created to be utilized on this movie as well. That's just kind of where my brain goes. I've got no problem with them using the volume because I think it looks great. I also think on site, well, I guess off the volume on site locations for filming are also incredible. I mean, that's where Star Wars, its origins are from, iconic scenes across the world, or I guess just looking at different views across the world. But it's very interesting to think about what Lucasfilm could be using from a technological standpoint to adapt different special effects. And I saw this in the what do you call it, the making of The Mandalorian, how they talked about George Lucas wanting to film scenes in his garage, and how out of that they took a mock model of the Razor Crest. I don't know how big it was, and they filmed a shot of the Razor Crest in a garage just because George Lucas was talking about it. Who knows what else they could do for practical or non-practical effects for this movie. So I guess it kind of goes off the question, but that's kind of where my head's at with that.
well, yeah. I was also going to add in season 2 they went to a remote location in California, I believe, and people have pinpointed where it was, and I believe it was the introduction of Boba Fett back into live action when
Sure.
they went to Tython when Grogu sat on the rock there. Connor, do you have any opinion at all? If you're pro practical, pro volume?
I mean, yeah, you can't beat practical. I mean, some of the best movies that use practical effects are still watched these days. I mean, John Carpenter's The Thing, anything from the original trilogy of Star Wars is just so enjoyable to watch, to see all the different aliens and seeing how almost even inside like the Tantive 4, you can almost tell just how it was made by hand. It's just, there's nothing really beating practical effects. It's definitely an art form.
Yeah, and I think honestly I love the volume too. I think it's incredibly innovative and it's an incredible achievement for Lucasfilm and for special effects. I feel like there's some times where when they're doing big action and the volume, or even sometimes it could be just dialogue scenes, but sometimes it feels limited by what they can do with the cameras within the volume, because they're working within a confined space, and sometimes that works just fine, and other times you kind of feel it, and I think that's where I'm like, you don't want to lean on it too much because it is a tool, and if you have the opportunity to go big for a movie, I know they want to like cut corners and save costs, and it's like I almost hope that they have a big enough budget where they can like explore options beyond the volume to do some really, like the prequels did these huge sets and these huge ships, and I would like to see Star Wars kind of go back to that. And that said, I loved what they did with the volume for Ahsoka. I loved what they did with it for Mandalorian. It's when they lean on it too much, it can feel a little rushed, maybe like Book of Boba did. Even Kenobi, there were episodes that maybe felt like they leaned on the volume a little too much for certain scenes. But so I don't want that to sort of hinder the enjoyment of what a Mandalorian film could be. So if they can go big, and use the volume, when it makes sense, or just use it correctly, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree with the 60-40, because you think about it, for theater compared to streaming, all of us, if we love it enough, we're going to pay for an additional ticket to watch it again. And then not only that, if they film it in IMAX form, you know what I mean? That's an additional ticket. You're going to go and watch it in IMAX because you're going to want to see it in that. So I think they're doing the right thing. But like you said, yes, practicals for sure, especially in those we want to see big fight scenes, like that fight scene we saw with the Razor Crest and stuff. That, to me, it was cool. But to have more ships involved, and I want to see that. And to me, like, the biggest thing that's okay, my favorite thing about Empire Strikes Back was Hoth. The AT-ATs, the everything like that. They weren't digital, they were practical.
Stop motion, yeah.
Yeah, stop motion. But with this, I feel we're gonna maybe have a bigger budget, so that means we can get more investment in. So I agree with you, Joe. I mean, we definitely need a mixture of that.
Yeah, I think a balance of, yeah, I mean, like Hoth is a good example because you had miniatures, you had blue screen, you had actual sets, for the Battle of Hoth. I mean, it felt, when they're inside Echo Base and,
Yeah.
Felt lived
Darth
in.
Vader's marching with the troops, with the snowtroopers. And like it didn't feel like a backdrop. It felt like a three-dimensional set. And I think sometimes you can kind of feel when some of the sets feel like a backdrop. I think there's other movies that have used the volume incorrectly that you really felt that, like Ant-Man, Quantumania. Like a lot of that was shot in the volume, and it kind of feels like the volume. It's kind of obvious at times.
Sure.
So I don't want Mandalorian to lean on it to that degree, but if they can use the volume and use practical sets, even go even bigger, utilize more special effects that are practical, that would be great.
Okay, so I gotta ask, because for Zach, and since you guys are the younger guys, and me and Joe are a little bit up there, which one of these movies did you watch in the big screen when it came out? Was it Revenge of the Sith? When did you first get to watch Star Wars in the big screen?
The Force Awakens. No, I'm just kidding. It was I wish it was Revenge of the Sith. Hate to say it. I beat this dead horse all the time. I was 5 when it came out. No one took me to see it. I was crushed. I didn't know it at the time, but I am now. I saw The Phantom Menace re-released in 3D in 2011 when that came back. That was my first experience with Star Wars. Well, sorry, that's a lie. Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Do we count that? The Clone Wars movie in the theater in 2008?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that counts.
So that was my first experience with Star Wars on the big screen. Sorry, I keep backtracking here, but that's my final answer. I promise.
Connor?
For me, I remember it was Attack of the Clones. I did see that in like IMAX, and that was pretty awesome seeing that as a kid. And Jango Fett's minefield in the asteroids, and there's just peak sound design. And then when I was a little older, Revenge of the Sith came out, saw that too. But I was so young at the time I saw it, but don't appreciate it like I do now. It's like, oh, I wish I could see those on the big screen again. So
nice.
Yeah,
see, and that's the thing. That's what we want, and this is what we've been talking about. David's been talking about for a good long while since he created this podcast, that we need to have back in theaters. And this is what I feel is that Mandalorian, that's what we need. We need to share it with people like us and fans in the theaters, the experience. Because come on, I was by myself when I saw the X-Wing pull in Mandalorian, to the ship. And I'm like, who's this? I didn't, my wife was with me, but it wasn't the same as a theater to hear that.
Yeah,
I want to do
wild
that
in the theater.
Yeah, I
Dang,
want to
dude.
experience that with friends. Like that's what we need as Star Wars fans, is to bring that back. And Joe knows what I'm talking about because he was there when we watched Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars. So that's what we need to share with everybody.
I'll blow your minds even further. I remember as a kid in Return of the Jedi, when at the end of the movie, and these kind of reactions don't happen in movies anymore, but this was the power of Star Wars, and this is also sort of the power of cinema back when me and Ray were younger. Movies were definitely much more special. Now there's so much, we get movies on streaming, on iPhones and iPads. Back then, movies were events, and Star Wars was the event. So by the time Return of the Jedi rolled into theaters, and the entire world was ready for this movie, and I remember seeing it opening weekend with my family, And we waited in a line that wrapped around the theater for probably 3 hours. And finally, we got into our showing. We watched the movie. There was raucous cheering the entire film. But at the end, when Lando and Wedge blow up the Death Star, the entire theater got up on their feet and were cheering. They were applauding. I remember that vividly. I think I was 10 years old or 11 years old when Jedi came out. And I still remember that moment of the entire theater, not just a few people. The entire audience stood up and were clapping and cheering, and then they got on their feet again when the credits rolled in that final shot. Where they're all when it goes into credits after the Ewok celebration. So like that doesn't really happen anymore. Kind of can in the theater. You get those. You still get some of that kind of vivid. Just that visceral reaction that Star Wars films can give audiences. So I agree. I'd like to see that again. I think Mandalorian can do it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Jon Favreau, he talks about one of his greatest movie experiences was being an usher at a movie theater in New Jersey during showings of Return of the Jedi, and how hyped he was with Star Wars. Of course, he saw the originals when he was younger, and he got to the age where he could work at the theater when Return of the Jedi came out. And that's what really sparked him to do what he does today, a writer, actor, producer, director. And yeah, it's Return of the Jedi, I think, that kind of like crystallized Star Wars in a way. I was born in 1981, so I experienced Star Wars on VHS, but I have a brother who's 15 years older than me. And I asked him maybe 20 years ago, I said, what was the one theater experience, one cinema experience that was maybe the greatest of your life? And without hesitation, he told me Return of the Jedi. He said basically what you said. He said the world was waiting for this thing to come out because the buildup from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, and then Empire Strikes Back at the time wasn't as accepted as it is now to be the best Star Wars film of all time. They were waiting for that ending, that final piece to the trilogy.
Yeah, even though Empire was a downer, I still remember the audience cheering at the end of Empire too. So it was the critics were a little harsher on Empire, but the fan base, Star Wars fans, I mean, the world still loved Empire. It was just because it was a darker movie, critics were a little harsher with it. But I still remember people cheering at the end of Empire as well. I mean, I was 8 years old when that came out, and I have vivid memories of that film as well. But it was Jedi that kind of, because it was such a triumphant ending for such a triumphant trilogy. So that was probably even more powerful, I would say.
Yeah. So what I've been hearing, I heard it just before the podcast, that the strategy for this film, internally at Lucasfilm, when Disney Plus started, The Mandalorian was the flagship show for Disney Plus, and it kicked off Disney Plus for the world. Bob Iger at the time thought that streaming was maybe going to be the next evolution in audience and fandom consumption of media, like movies and TV shows. It's changed a little bit in that Disney Plus is now, I've been saying this for a while on the podcast, it's plateaued with subscriptions, with viewership. Even though The Mandalorian was the #1 streaming show across all streaming platforms for 2023, surprisingly to me, because you hear a lot of backlash towards the third season. But now it seems like they have the initiative, and Bob Iger has said it, that they want to get back to the theaters. And to me, that was always kind of a weird strategy, I thought. I mean, to me, Disney always had the funds and the resources to keep on making movies after the sequel trilogy. However, they stopped. They concentrated on Disney Plus. But like we said at the beginning of the podcast, if they were just to make the Mandalorian TV show and then with the finale, maybe put that in the theater, maybe it would have been a little bit different in that you would still have the revenue coming in to Disney, to Lucasfilm, but now they've kind of seen the way, pun intended. What do you guys think about that? Is that maybe the best strategy at this point in time, for everything that's happened? Because there's also reports stating that there's still going to be a Mandalorian season 4 happening. And if they do a Mandalorian season 4, I mean, they're primed to make this new Mandalorian Grogu essentially the season finale. What do you guys think about that, Connor?
It's kind of like what Joe said. Going to the movie used to be like such an experience, and when you can kind of get everything on streaming, it can be really hard to like get that big excitement feeling over like the next new project or like the next new Star Wars thing. So it's like I'm excited that with the move going back to the theater, hopefully they kind of go something more suitable theater, a much bigger size project, bigger action sequences, bigger ideas. So I'm glad, and I look forward to seeing like the new take, returning back to the theaters after being gone for so many years outside of like the streaming kind of format of it. So, I look forward to seeing what will happen.
Zach?
Go ahead, Zach.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could think of it a couple different ways. There's people who will go see a Star Wars movie no matter what in the theater who haven't seen anything on Disney Plus.
All of us.
And there's people who just see anything that has Star Wars attached to it that jump on it, and after seeing all the shows that Star Wars has released, I'm excited to see how this brings things together. I feel like this movie can reach all kinds of audiences. I think it will be suggested or encouraged to watch all the shows. So it might be a method of them saying, hey, subscribe to Disney Plus or buy seasons, however many of whatever shows released on 4K, buy these shows.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think it works with The Mandalorian. It's not going to work with other shows like Marvel shows. And I think we kind of saw a little bit of that issue with the Marvels when that was released. A lot of people didn't go see it because they didn't know who Kamala Khan was. They didn't really know who Photon was with Monica Rambeau. So we saw a little bit of that. But The Mandalorian was the #1 streaming show in the world last year. So that really shouldn't be an issue. And like the huge popularity of Baby Yoda, I mean, shouldn't have an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could just say Star Wars, baby, and it's just going to, there's a completely different.
That might be a better title.
Some of the audiences for, Marvel and Star Wars overlap, right? But I mean, Star Wars was what got me interested in Disney Plus. I remembered waking up really early the morning Disney Plus launched to watch the episode of The Mandalorian before I went to work, just because I wanted new Star Wars content. It wasn't for anything else exclusive that they had at the time. Granted, their library is a lot smaller at that point compared to what it is now, but I think that this could be an attempt to get people to subscribe to Disney Plus or buy the physical release of whatever shows are available to try to prepare for this movie. It also could work without, but it might not be as enjoyable. I guess we'll see.
So, Connor is a comic book store owner, guys. If you didn't know, he's a comic book store owner for Michigan. What was the store's name again, sir?
We're Lanks Comics and Collectibles, and we're in the Lakes Mall.
Okay, yeah. So he knows, he's been there because at one point when they were going to go from digital away from hard copies, it was kind of like the streaming service. They were doing the digital part first, and then you can, they thought it was going to kill the comic book industry. But true fans want the hard copy. Don't get me wrong, it's great to read it on your iPad if you're traveling or whatever, but it's kind of one of those things like the streaming service. You can read it on the go, you can keep it as a collection, and it's kind of the same thing, with Joe too, because some artists transferred completely over to digital, some still do original art, and then they scan it, and then they start doing the digital coloring for their artwork as well, because it's a good intake between the both worlds. It's just how do you utilize it is what's going to be the big difference. And everybody has a unique taste. There are some people that just do digital, and there's people who do both. And I think Joe does both, right? You do a little bit of original art and still digital.
Yeah. I mean, I started out many years ago. I was trained traditionally to draw and paint by hand, and that's my early career. And then gradually evolved more and more digital over the years. So my training isn't traditional. However, the last 15 or 20 years of my career has gotten, now to the point, these last 10 years have been, most of what I do is fully digital, but I still do commissions and sketches by hand, for collectors and stuff like that. So I think I know what you're getting at. And there's always, you have the allure of these different formats, and people, like when streaming was new and everyone rushes to streaming, and it kind of, we're still feeling the effects of that with films in the box office, and movies not making as much as they used to. And at some point, there's still a desire and allure to see movies on the big screen. I mean, obviously, like Barbie and Oppenheimer crushed it last year. So it shows if there's, and those weren't Marvel movies. Those weren't Star Wars films. That was cinema. And if you make good cinema, that's not, granted, it's not like the old days where you can make any old movie and people will show up to see it. Those days are long gone. Like,
Too many
I would see
options.
everything in the
Yeah.
theater. So, but nowadays, like, it has to be quality, right, to get people to come. And when you make quality, good word of mouth, good reviews, a good Rotten Tomato score, I mean, all of that, people pay attention to all of that. So there can be a balance between, streaming and cinema, or print and digital, original art versus digital illustration. Um, so it really depends if, sometimes it takes time for that balance to work itself out, but you also have to deliver the goods. And Star Wars, like Marvel, mostly, I mean, Marvel's got to get its feet back under themselves. And Star Wars, kind of to a degree, it has more to prove again, since it's been away for a while. The last Star Wars film kind of divided fans. Solo, which was a great film, but Disney didn't promote it properly. It didn't make a lot of money. So, with Disney second guessing themselves so much on Star Wars, that's what really shifted it to streaming. But then it found success on streaming. But now it's time for Star Wars to find success on the big screen. And I think this announcement makes sense to me, because as much as I love Rey and the character of Rey Skywalker, I do see the flaws of the sequel trilogy, and I do understand how they divided the fan base. And the first movie coming out supposedly was going to be the Rey Skywalker New Jedi Order film. And with a lot of the controversial news coming out over the number of weeks, the last few weeks, I don't know if it makes sense to have Rey be your first Star Wars movie out of the gate, when Star Wars, as much as excited as I am for that film, to me it makes more sense that if you want Star Wars to succeed in cinema again, you want to come out with Mandalorian and Grogu. I think that's the movie that will, because Grogu makes Star Wars accessible for everyone. Mandalorian was hugely successful, we know that. The sequel trilogy divided fans, we know that. But Grogu is what's going to put everyone in the movie seat. Moms, dads, aunts, uncles, not just the hardcore Star Wars fans. So to me, it makes more sense that they make this announcement, especially after the Rey Skywalker movie, kind of like, it's not really getting the fan base ignited, especially with some of the controversy lately. I think a Mandalorian movie makes more sense to trump all of that, and that's why I think maybe that's why they made the announcement today. To kind of like blow that other news off to the side. But if they start out with Mando, and Mando conquers at the box office, fans are going to be ready for that Rey movie too. So
I'm just
Yeah.
saying I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Mando movie first. And I'm not talking about Dave Filoni's Mandoverse movie. I think that's going to come after Rey's movie. But I think now with Ahsoka season 2 being greenlit, or at least announced it's in production, I think Dave has to get through that first, and then his movie, which will wrap up and probably tie into the Mando and Grogu movie, obviously. So, to me, it makes sense. Do the Mando Grogu movie first. You have Ahsoka season 2 in there. Put Rey in there after that somewhere, and then have Dave's Mandoverse movie to wrap it all up. I think that makes. I would go with the Mando and Grogu movie first. Maybe that's what they're doing. I'm not sure, but.
And you kind of answered the next question I was going to ask, Joe. I kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the show. Do you think that they made this announcement to kind of, like you said, trump the controversy that shouldn't be controversy because those Charmin Obey-Chinoy comments were made 8 years ago about a totally different subject. So yeah, it's totally taken out of context. What do you think, Zach? Do you think that this was a kind of a
a little move? Bit. I guess people like us who look into it and know that it's not out of context, we really don't have too much to worry about, but for the people who don't, like, it reaches, kind of like what Joe was saying, it reaches moms and dads, aunts and uncles, not just the hardcore fans like us. Like, people will see, oh, Mandalorian film, holy crap, like, let's go rewatch seasons 1 through 3 real quick. I don't know, like, it could just totally distract you from what's going on. And as someone who wasn't super focused on the controversy, because I saw past it a little bit, because I looked into it a little bit more, I didn't have as much to worry about. So I'm not coming from that perspective of being, I guess you could say, triggered. I don't know, however you want to look at it, right? I'm sure people were feeling all kinds of different emotions about different things regarding that statement that was taken out of context. But I could definitely see that as a way for them to kind of swayed the crowd one way versus the other.
So what do you think, Ray? Is it Star Wars tinfoil hat thinking?
Well, no, I was actually going to ask Connor, with Thrawn being introduced into the series of Ahsoka, how has have people been coming to the comic book store asking about the new Thrawn series or the first series that came out who want to get more information on Thrawn? Have you seen people come in asking about that?
Yeah, because they did a mini series not too long ago, maybe like back in, oh my gosh, we're in 24 now, maybe back in like 2018, 19, they did like a mini series on Thrawn. And then of course his first appearance and Heir to the Empire, for the hardcore collectors out there, they definitely try to find their copies in good condition just because they want to have that collector's value. Now, it's like, oh, he's on the big screen now, like that origin story will definitely go up in price. So you see that with a lot of like in the Marvel comics as well. But at least for like the general audience of people that like want like kind of more of this through the comic book industry. I mean, they do make like a Mandalorian comic. They did one for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show as well, where basically it's just redone in comic book form. So at least nothing new, but you can at least like kind of go through that story again in a different fashion if that is your particular form of media consumption. And for our regular comic book people, like they keep up to date on all the Star Wars titles. I mean, I think alone that's mainly the main Star Wars title, and the High Republic series was very popular when that came out, and the Darth Vader series continues to get a lot of subscriptions. So Star Wars gets a lot of attention through the comic books, and especially with characters like Thrawn, and who knows who may come on the big screen later, what else they'll do for the comic book side of things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, the next big announcement there is Ahsoka season 2 is in development. I wanted to get Connor and Joe's thoughts on what they thought of the first season of Ahsoka. Joe?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, Dave is as close to George Lucas as we're ever going to get. I mean, Dave is his protege. Dave understands Star Wars in a way as a filmmaker that very I think few filmmakers do. I also, as a huge Star Wars fan, I was invested in Clone Wars. I loved Star Wars Rebels as well. So, I've been a fan of Ahsoka since her first appearance, even though she was a bit annoying in the Clone Wars film. And over the course of season 1 and 2, we see her start to come into her own as a character. So I followed the animation. I loved the animated series. So I really enjoyed Ahsoka. I understand like Star Wars fans who aren't into animation or weren't paying attention to it, or just maybe they watched some of Clone Wars and maybe not all of it. Maybe they never got into Rebels. I understand if they didn't enjoy Ahsoka to the extent that fans like I did, or Ray or any of you guys. So I get that, because I know there were Ahsoka wasn't like the big Star Wars huge hit possibly that everyone thought it was going to be. But I think for those of us who've been paying attention to Star Wars over the last 10 to 15 years, who's been invested in the animation as well, Ahsoka really paid off a lot of character arcs. It paid off storylines, stuff that we've been waiting since Rebels ended, years ago. We got to see that payoff in Ahsoka. And so for me, it made me emotional. I'm not gonna lie. Like I really loved Ahsoka. So, but it's hard for me to like discern what maybe like an average Star Wars fan might, because I know some that still enjoyed it, and then I know some who weren't into the animation that didn't enjoy it. So it's hard for me to be like nonpartisan about it, because I only see it through the eyes as a dedicated fan to the mythology who loved the animated shows. So I thought Dave did a great job with the Ahsoka series. So, and I think I think the general consensus is most fans did enjoy Ahsoka. And now I'm especially stoked for the season 2 news that it's in production. So
yeah. So you extremely enjoyed it. It was an overall success.
I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Yeah.
So what surprised me when we found out the information that Mandalorian was the #1 streaming show across all platforms, Ahsoka was actually number 8 across all platforms. So to me, I think that's a huge success out of all the streaming options you have. So
right.
I really liked Ahsoka.
That's so big.
It made a lot of sense. Like you said, it finished off a lot of arcs, and to see the stuff in live action, the carryover, the transference with the new actors, and just the storyline in and of itself, and then getting Thrawn in live action, getting the same voice actor. I thought it was awesome. It really worked for me. Connor, what did you think about Ahsoka season 1?
I enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of good, and it definitely had like some moments that it definitely had its like peak moments where it was pretty exciting. But I'll admit, I kind of have the opposite effect. I think the anime, like I'm a big fan of cartoons and animation. I grew up with Gendy Tartakovsky's adaptation of the Clone Wars back in 02 and 03, and I still enjoy a lot of that to this day. And when you see how you bring this brand new character of Ahsoka into the Star Wars universe with a movie, and you finish her arc off with season 7 of Clone Wars, what a rise in a character arc, and what a well-developed character overall in the Star Wars universe. I think some of the animation has some of the best storytelling, some of the best action sequences in Star Wars overall when it comes to its track record. And it's extremely exciting to see that on the big screen and kind of get that euphoric feeling. And, now you hope to see it on the big screen, not just outside, not just in streaming, but on the big screen one day. But, I can always go back and watch Clone Wars and see, just how good that was. I truly enjoy Clone Wars, probably at Star Wars at its most.
Nice. Yeah, I think I don't know if I want to speak for Zach and Ray, but I think we all enjoyed Ahsoka.
Yeah.
We did pre-shows, post-shows, and then review shows all on each episode. And they were terrific. I mean, bringing Hayden Christensen back,
Mhm.
showing him in brief spots as Vader. I mean, finishing that arc off, showing that
Captain Rex on the big screen.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Live
so
action.
good.
yeah.
One day big screen.
Clone Wars in live action. Yeah, that was
Just
incredible.
even some of the deep philosophy stuff that Dave did
Mhm.
with the Force, with Anakin's arc, with which we never thought we would get more to Anakin's arc. Who would have thought that story that character's story wasn't finished, and we got more with Anakin and how that shaped Ahsoka with her arc and her character, and how that informed her decisions within the show. It was just, I don't know. I thought Dave's writing was just so well done for the philosophy of Star Wars and the mythology of it all. How he just kind of brought it all together in ways that and yeah, there were some deep cuts in there that maybe average fans may not have understood, or they might have missed out on some of the Clone Wars tidbits or the Rebels stuff. But to me, it just, because I was aware of all that, it worked so perfectly.
So, Joe, I wanted to ask, have you had any chance to meet Favreau or Filoni?
I've met Dave a few times. Yeah, I mean,
Says it casually.
We
Just
go back.
So I gotta ask, how was it? Okay, this is just I want to know when you met Filoni for the first time, and did you think he was going to take Star Wars where he took it to now? I mean, when
Oh, not really. Because when we first met, it was before the Clone Wars film ever came out.
oh
So
wow,
So we met in 2007 for the first time. Because I've been working for Lucasfilm since, well, I mean, doing through licensing and publishing, I've been working with Lucasfilm. So I've been at, for since the late 90s. So I've been involved in Star Wars for a long time. So that's given me opportunity to go to events and go to Lucasfilm and meet people. So yeah, I met Dave. I think it was Star Wars Celebration 4 in Los Angeles in 2007. And this was a year before the movie had come out. But he was there. George was there. I met Dave right before they were going to play a preview of the Clone Wars film. I don't think it was the whole thing, but they were going to show like 20 minutes of it, I think, of the 2008 Clone Wars film, which I think it was coming out like early in 2008. So by summer of 2007, I think they had a huge portion of it done, and they showed a section of the movie. And but yeah, right before the movie played, or that section played, I got to meet Dave, and we had a nice little chat. And then just over the years, just seeing him at different events and conventions, 501st dinners, that kind of stuff, where we've gotten to hang out and talk. And he's just a regular guy. Like he's so humble. Like everyone thinks like Dave Filoni, and he really does deserve all that praise. I mean, he's so talented, and he's so passionate about Star Wars like I am, but he's just like a regular guy. He's super friendly. He's a lot of fun to be with and hang around. So I've gotten to be friends with Dave over the years, and his wife. His wife Anne is amazing. She's the best. John, I haven't really met John in person, Favreau, but I've seen him at a distance, but I haven't had the chance to talk to Favreau yet. But I've known Dave for a long time.
So he knows Dave. He's met Captain America.
Oh, Chris Evans. I've met Chris.
Dude, I'm so every time you post pictures of people you meet, I'm like, wow. I'm like,
Dang.
yeah.
Can you bring a
It's
friend?
part of the, yeah, I go to a lot of Comic Cons, and you know, I'm just an artist, but sometimes the artists and the celebrities get to mingle because we're guests.
Hmm.
You know, if we're guests of the event, you know, it's like, oh, hey, here I'm at a restaurant, or here I am at a bar with Captain America and Bucky Barnes. Even I got to meet Sebastian Stan. So I actually bought Sebastian Stan a beer. You know, this is pretty crazy.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. So, but that kind of stuff. I mean, some of my best experiences as a fan has been becoming friends with these Star Wars actors over the course of, you know, many years, or you know, people like Dave who work behind the scenes. But yeah, I mean, getting to go to dinner with David Prowse and Jeremy Bullock and Peter Mayhew, or getting to hang out with Anthony Daniels all day at a convention, you know, it's stuff like that I just, it never gets, it just blows me away, because I think back to when I was a little kid, and when I first fell in love with these characters, and now as an adult, and I get to be part of that world and hang out with these people that bring these characters to life. It never gets old. It's I mean, I'm not a celebrity, I'm just an artist, but I get to kind of dabble in that world, you know.
You don't give yourself enough credit, sir. You
Oh,
the work you do. No, to be honest with you, man, 'cause the stuff that you do is a gift, especially
thanks, man.
the stuff that you're able to. Because I mean, you think about it, it's coming from your imagination. You put it on paper, and then you have to submit it to Lucas, and they tell you, okay, we like it, we don't like it. Can you change this? Can you change that? But everything is coming from your imagination, that they give you a little bit of whatever the kind of
They give me a
whatever they
little
give you.
direction.
Yeah, a little
Sometimes they
direction,
give
but but it comes from you directly, from those little things they give you. Dude, that to me, that's a talent that I wish I would have. But that's why every time I see you, and like I told these guys earlier, when I first met you in Emerald City back in the day, I was like stoked for meeting you, because for me, it's art. And that's the reason why, like, that's why I have all these comics here. So, because of art, because of artists and the work they do and the writers. Without you guys putting this stuff on paper, we would not have a lot of the stuff in the theaters that we currently have. Star Wars, of course, is an exception, because that was actually the movie that first came out. But everything else, comic book form, I mean, without you guys doing it, we wouldn't have anything. So that's why I give you guys so much praise, because without you, we wouldn't have, and then Connor wouldn't have his store to sell comics. So you know what I mean? So it's a full circle, you know?
Yeah. No, it's nice to, I appreciate that. Thank you so much people are like, oh, you must be friends with George Lucas, or you must work on the movies. It's like, well, it's not really like that. I mean, I work in licensing, I work in publishing, you know, I get to do Star Wars posters, you know, but it's not, you know, I'm not in there writing the movies or hanging out with George Lucas, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah,
sir.
ironically, that was going to be my next question. Joe already answered it. Best Dave Filoni story, Zach?
Oh, dang! Why catch me off guard so quick like that? Man, I'm a sucker for the Mortis arc. And like, you're talking story he's written, or Dave Filoni story? Like,
No, when you met him that one time.
Oh yeah, Dave, good buddy Dave. Yeah, no, I wish. That's I've definitely had like visions in my head on how I would, I guess, what I'd ask him, what I'd talk to him about if I had the opportunity. Like, it's on my bucket list to have a beer with Dave Filoni. That's definitely on that for me. But I don't know, maybe
He's
one day I'll
very
get to tell that
approachable.
story.
If you meet him at
Sweet.
Celebration, yeah, he's very approachable. So don't.
And I'm
don't
okay
be
with shooting my
worried.
shot, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a story where he was very not approachable. I was actually coming outside of the cantina at Galaxy's Edge. It was Star Wars Night 2022 Anaheim Celebration. Ian McDermott walked through and
I
he
was there
walked.
that night
We
too.
were. Oh, okay, cool. We were probably there at the
Yeah.
same time. So Ian
Yeah.
McDermott walks by. We were sitting in a booth, and people just you
Mm.
could kind of hear like the whispers and like we're like, who's in here? And he walks by, and he has like a bodyguard. His family was with him, and it was kind of funny because he had people like blocking his booth because I had gotten up because I recognized someone that I knew at the bar, so I wanted to go to the bar and talk to them, and they were freaking out about Ian McDermott being right behind us. And right as he didn't stay long, so he got up, and of course everyone was kind of monitoring the situation. So when he got to the exit, he stopped and he turned around to look at us, and he just went, ah! And everyone just cheered because he knew everyone was like recognizing him. So
That's
he
great.
left. I left right behind him, and as I was walking across, right in front of that area, I'm not sure if that's the area where the Falcon is or where the TIE Fighter is, but I turned to my left, and I see Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Sam Witwer in the middle of like a big entourage, just walking like beelining
Yeah,
it
I
towards
saw him
some
there
other
that
place
night.
in the park. So yeah, there was no way I could have approached him because I saw some people try and get in there, and they were kind of gently pushed away. And I was like, yeah, that's not
I
gonna
think
happen to me.
it's different at Celebration because Dave and John will actually walk around, especially early in the morning.
All
Um,
day.
they're usually on the floor mingling with fans.
Right.
So they kind of, I think the Disney thing was probably a little different because I don't know, they probably needed security there, but Celebration, they do always go out of their way to take photos with fans. They walk around in the mornings and talk to
Yeah.
people.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. The thing we didn't know was they shut the park down for about an hour. They let all the celebrities and all the media go through and ride all the rides, wait free,
Oh yeah,
essentially. And then it's up to them if they want to stay or not. So I was meeting all kinds of people that I've seen online, all kinds of influencers and
yeah.
online
That was
personalities.
a fun night. I
Yeah.
was there. I was just in Olga's right before Dave and John and Sam showed up. So I left, and then I think they came in, and then I circled back around later, and I think I saw them leaving.
Okay, so that's probably
But
where they headed to. They went in through the back way.
yeah. Well, no,
Okay.
I think they went out the front towards the tie. It doesn't matter, but I think they went out towards
Yeah.
the front towards the TIE Fighter. But yeah, I think you're right. They shut down the park for an hour to let everyone, the celebrities ride everything. But that was a really fun night, Star Wars night.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Nice. Like I said, told you it was gonna be a fun night, Zach. Told you it was gonna be fun.
Dang. Now I'm geeked up for when I get to meet Dave Filoni. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I'll be somewhat prepared. So
Are you guys?
Dude,
going
I'm
to
probably
celebrate?
faint.
Anybody?
I don't
going
think
to-
I'll be there.
That's what I was gonna say. Maybe Japan, 2025.
I'd love to be because Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie of all time, and I'd love to be there for that panel. But I guess it's a ways away. It could happen. I
Yeah,
don't know,
and
but
I don't know if I'm going yet or not. I mean, I'll probably know by the end of this, probably later this fall, or because I'll apply to the art show for Celebration, which is very competitive, and all Star Wars illustrators usually apply, and plus hundreds more people. So if I end up getting into the art show for Japan, then I'll probably go, but I probably won't know until late this year.
you need a bodyguard.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's our goal. Like David said, our goal is to hopefully go to Celebration.
Yeah. Well, it'll come back after Japan. Because 2027 will be the 50th anniversary of Star
Yes,
Wars.
I was about to talk
And
about
it's
that.
definitely going to be in the States.
For sure.
That one they won't. Yeah, that'll be in Orlando or Anaheim. I'm guessing Orlando. That's where Star Wars is. The last Celebration was set to go there before Japan. So I'm guessing because they've already did Anaheim in was the last time in the States. So it's supposed to alternate between both parks. So my prediction is 2027 Orlando for Star Wars Celebration.
I wonder why they picked Japan over Orlando for 2025.
You can probably thank Ron DeSantis for that one. So I won't say any more. I don't political.
So where can fans find you? Which convention are you going to be doing in the next couple of months?
Actually, speaking of Orlando, my first convention is MegaCon coming up here at February 1st in Orlando. So it's usually like in March or April, but they moved it up to sorry, getting over a cold. They moved up MegaCon to February 1st this year. So that's my first show is in Orlando. And then and that's a big one. They're going to have Ewan McGregor there, Hayden Christensen. God, it's a huge Star Wars guest list. I think Gina Carano is going to be there. Katie Sackhoff, Giancarlo, Anthony Daniels. I think I know it's a huge.
Wow.
It's almost like a celebration guest list for MegaCon, and it's a huge event. It's like over 200,000 people that come to MegaCon every year. Yeah, so if you've never been, it's up there with New York and San Diego as the biggest one. So I'm looking forward to that one just because it's such a huge show. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be so many Star Wars guests there.
Are you going to be working on any exclusive pieces for that event?
For MegaCon, you know what? I don't know if I have anything exclusive for MegaCon yet. I am working on new stuff, and I don't know if it'll be out. I don't know if it'll be ready in time for MegaCon, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, hopefully I'll have something exclusive for San Diego again this year. I usually do. As far as Star Wars art goes, I usually have an exclusive poster through Lucasfilm for that one. So we'll see. But I've got so many things in the works. It depends if they get done in time and if they get approved in time.
Sweet.
Nice. Have you been to any of the San Antonio cons?
Not yet. I've heard good things about the San Antonio one. I know there's the superhero car show one.
Yeah.
Which I've heard good things about. And what's that one you told me about, Ray, that's coming up in October?
Space City Con.
Space City Con, right. Yeah, and I'm definitely funny thing is I'm planning on moving probably late this, probably in June. So I'm going to be coming, I'll be moving to Oklahoma, which is where I'm at right now, actually. So I'll be doing more Southwest shows actually pretty close after June. So I'm looking. I'm definitely interested in doing San Antonio. I'm definitely interested in doing the Space Con too. That's one I'm going to be looking at. Hopefully, attending as an artist guest. Hopefully.
Awesome. Nice.
Sweet.
Very cool.
So you'll see more of me down this way later this year.
Well, we'll have to take you to show you where to eat in San Antonio.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm totally down for that.
So, Connor, you do have an awesome comic book shop. Zach's been telling us all about it for several weeks now. And Ray mentioned that you can access the shop via online methods. So anything you want to tell our listeners, viewers about the comic book shop in Muskegon?
Yeah, if you're located in Michigan, we're on the west side in Norton Shores. We got, we've had a store there now for about 10 years. The business overall has been going since '86. For our online shop, we pretty much service through eBay and Amazon, and it's mainly like figures, toys, and all sorts of stuff that we provide through the store as well. And eBay is much more for the comic book basis, if that's your thing. But yeah, no, it's my dad's store. He's been kind of running that, like I said, since '86, and I've been pretty much doing it for a long while now. And the mall's been good, the traffic's been good, and had a pretty decent good year in 23, and look forward to trying to do more things for 24 since it's our 10-year anniversary in the mall. So we'll see kind of what we do.
Nice.
Yeah, I do a lot of shows in Michigan too because I live in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm always at Motor City Con. I'm always at
Yep.
Grand Rapids Comic Con.
Yep. Those are,
So
yeah, we pretty much do a show on average about once a month. I think our first show is Great Lakes Comic Con in like
okay,
mid-February, give or take, but we'll do the spring fling for Grand Rapids when that's in like April, give or take,
you might see
May.
me at that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that
might be
one's
at
a
that.
little smaller.
Yeah,
So,
it is. I did
but
it
we'll
before.
do that. We'll do the Motor City, in summer and in fall. So yeah, we'll definitely have another busy show for years, or for
Okay.
this year again. So
Yeah, I'll see you at Motor City for sure.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Also, guys, if you guys haven't stopped by his shop, pick up this issue if it's available still. This is giving you stories that are going to be coming out later this year. So you get to see a couple issues, a couple of pages for Thrawn, Mace Windu, Vader. So you get to see a little bit introduction of what to expect for the new comics coming this year. So swing by his store if you guys haven't. Do you have subscription boxes?
We do like the previews pull list through Diamonds Comics and Collectibles, so we definitely got a decent pull customer amount, and like I said, a lot of them do continue to get like almost all the Star Wars stories, and even like the Star Wars Insider magazine, if that's kind of like
Oh,
you want
nice.
more in depth on that. So there's a lot through Star Wars Media and through the Marvel system, and I think even Dark Horse still does a little bit here and there through like the High Republic. So there's a lot to go through. So if that's kind of your thing and you want like the trade paperbacks or to do it by issue, yeah, we do the pull lists and everything.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the shop again, and where is it located?
It's Lang's Comics and Collectibles, located in the Lakes Mall in Norton Shores.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm sure we'll put a link in the show notes to click on for the comic book shop. And we'll put a link in there for Joe's social information as well. But I think that's pretty much it, guys, for the podcast this time around. And I just want to thank again Connor and Joe for joining us to talk about this huge news and talk a little bit about their very interesting lives there. So for Ray, Zach, Joe, Connor, my name is David, and may the force be with you.
Always. Yeah.
Peace.